You know what really grinds my gears about humans. Admiral Kazid clicked his mandibles in frustration. They don't even have the decency to lose properly. Commander Verilm's eye-talk swiveled toward his superior, sir. With all due respect, they've lost. 7 consecutive battles, their orbital defenses are in ruins. Their military infrastructure is crippled. What more could you possibly want? The Admiral's carapace flushed a deep purple of irritation as he gestured at the holographic display showing Earth's final transmission. I want them to stop sending messages like this, the message broadcast on all frequencies and translated into the standard galactic language hung in the air between them, stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be civilized. What does it even mean? Kazita chittered. Is it a threat? A joke? Some bizarre cultural reference? We've conquered 18 species across 12 star systems, and not one of them has ever responded to imminent defeat. With whatever this is, perhaps it's just desperation. Verilm suggested their global communications network is still partially functional. This could be some rogue element trying to save face. Admiral Keyes flicked his antenna dismissively. Our intelligence reports indicate the message came directly from their United Earth Defense Council. This was an official coordinated response. Should we respond to it? Veril asked hesitantly. Absolutely not. We continue as planned, deploy the 9th wave to eliminate their remaining ground defenses. I want boots on the surface. Within 36 hours, yes. Admiral General Elena Blackwood surveyed the ruins of what had once been UEEDC headquarters in Geneva. The Kra'Vazh bombardment had reduced most of the complex to rubble, but the emergency bunker was intact, and that was all that. Mattered status report, she barked, not looking up from the tactical display. Colonel Dmitry Volulov's voice was steady despite the circumstances. The message was successfully transmitted on all available channels. General, our remaining quantum entanglement. Communicators confirm it reached at least 73% of their fleet. Good, Blackwood nodded. And the response? Nothing yet. They've continued orbital bombardment of military targets in Asia and North America. So they've chosen option B, Blackwood said with a grim smile. Excellent. Volkov shifted uncomfortably. With respect, General, I still think we should have tried a more conventional approach, a peace offering. Or we tried peace offerings 3 weeks ago. Blackwood interrupted. We tried surrender terms 2 weeks ago. We tried targeted counterattacks last week. None of it worked. These bugs don't understand how we think. And frankly, we've been playing by their rulebook too long. But Protocol Omega, it's our last resort. Yes. But in case you haven't noticed, Colonel Shi gestured to the devastation visible. On the security feeds, we've reached last resort territory. The civilian casualties will be... There won't be any civilians left if we don't act, Blackwood said sharply. The Kra'Vazh don't distinguish between military and civilian targets once they establish ground control. We've seen the footage from their previous conquests, but using Project Lazarus, it goes against everything. It goes against everything we've been pretending to be. Blackwood corrected. Humanity has been playing nice for centuries. Colonel, we've been good little galactic citizens. We've followed the rules of war, and where has it gotten us? On the brink of extinction. She tapped a sequence on her command pad, bringing up a new display. Do you know why we called it Project Lazarus? Colonel Volkov swallowed hard. Because it brings back the dead. Blackwood's laugh was hollow. No. Because it brings back what we buried, what we tried to kill in ourselves. She looked up, her eyes hard. Initiate protocol. Omega authorization. Blackwood Tango. Sierra. 91. Yes. General Volkov said quietly. He moved to the central console and began the activation sequence. Blackwood turned back to the tactical display, watching as new data began to flow in time to remind the galaxy who we really are. Fleet Commander Dizarok was reviewing the latest bombardment reports when the alert came through. Commander. His sensor officer, called voice pitched high with alarm. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface. What kind of signatures? Zorak demanded, moving to the sensor station. Unknown. Sir, they don't match any weapons profiles in our database. They're emanating from everywhere. Everywhere. That's impossible. No, sir, I mean literally everywhere. We're detecting these energy spikes from every continent. Every ocean, even the polar regions. Dizarok's mandibles clicked nervously. Put it on the main display. The holographic projection of Earth appeared, then began to light up with thousands, no millions. Tiny points of light, they pulsed in unison, creating a web-like pattern that encompassed the entire planet. What in the seven moons? Dizarok muttered. His communications officer interrupted. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the surface on screen. The image shifted to show a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform, though it was different from the United Earth defense standards they'd observed before. This uniform was black unmarked except for a single insignia, astralized phoenix rising from flames. This is General Elena Blackwood of Earth's Lazarus Protocol, the human said, her voice unnervingly calm. We warned you? Warned us. Dizarok couldn't help responding. Your message was cryptic nonsense. The human's lips curled upward in what their intelligence briefings had identified as a smile. Though this version contained none of the warmth the expression supposedly conveyed. Then allow me to clarify, she said. For the past 3 centuries, humanity has been restraining itself, playing by galactic rules, acting civilized. That ends today. Your threats are meaningless. Davies said, your military capabilities are crippled. Your orbital defenses are destroyed. Your defeat is inevitable. You're absolutely right about one thing. Blackwood replied, our military is crippled. If you're talking about the military, we've been showing you a new data feed appeared beside her, image technical specifications and deployment statistics that made no sense to Davies. You see, Commander, humanity's history is complicated. We spent millennia trying to kill each other before we finally united. When we did, we made a decision to bury our most dangerous technologies and approaches to warfare to become civilized by galactic standards. We created the United Earth Defense Council to oversee our military development along acceptable ethic lines. And Dizarok clicked impatiently, and we created Protocol Omega Ace Insurance, a distributed hidden network of weapons platforms, research facilities, and personnel dedicated to maintaining and advancing the technologies we officially abandoned, technologies that even our own citizens don't know, exist as if on cue. The sensor officer called out again, sir, the energy readings are intensifying. They're interfacing with our system somehow. That's impossible. Davies snapped, our security protocols are based on technology we shared with the galactic community. Blackwood interrupted. Technology we deliberately held back from upgrading because we knew this day might come across. The command deck consoles began to flicker and fail. The ship's lights dimmed, then stabilized at half power. What have you done? Dizarok demanded, genuine fear creeping into his voice. For the first time, we've activated a subspace resonance field that selectively targets your neural networks, both biological and synthetic. Blackwood explained, as if discussing the weather right. Now it's just disrupting your ship's systems. But with a slight adjustment, it could target your central nervous systems instead. That's barbaric, no. Blackwood corrected. It's pragmatic. You left us no choice before Davies could respond. His tactical officer called out in panic, sir, we're detecting mass teleportation signatures throughout the fleet. Something is boarding our vessels. Lieutenant Marcus Davies materialized in the corridor of a Kra'Vazh destroyer, his Lazarus Protocol combat armor whirring softly as its systems synchronized with the neural interface in his brain. The suit was a technological marvel that would have been deemed too aggressive by galactic community standards. A blend of advanced exoskeleton neural enhancement and integrated weapon systems that effectively turned its wearer into a walking tank. But the real violation of galactic conventions was the teleportation system itself. Most spacefaring civilizations had abandoned the technology centuries ago after the Telosian incident, where a teleportation accident had wiped out an entire species. Humanity had officially done the same, while secretly perfecting it under Protocol Omega. Lazarus Team Alpha in position. Davies' sub vocalized the Neuralink, transmitting his words directly to the command network. No contact yet. Copy Alpha, came the response in his mind. Beta through Echo teams report successful insertion. Primary objectives: secure engine rooms, command bridges and weapons. Into the camera. With a growing smile. Looks like our package might be having the desired effect. System malfunctions, security protocols, failing, classic signs of a network in chaos. Lieutenant, if you have an opportunity to escape, you should take it. Immediately, the Admiral advised the hegemony will soon realize what's happening working on it. Blackwell assured him already moving around what they could now see was a medical laboratory of some kind, but I might be able to accelerate the process. From in here, she began examining various control panels, her fingers dancing across alien interfaces with surprising confidence. "What are you doing?" Trill asked, leaning forward in fascination. "Giving our little chaos seat a boost," Blackwell replied. "Without looking up if I can access their network directly from this terminal. Yes, I'm in basic security. Protocols aerial-ready failing, the seed is working faster than we anticipated. The image shook as what appeared to be an explosion rocked the room." "That didn't sound good," Blackwell commented, still focused on the terminal. "For them, I mean for us, it's great." "Lieutenant," the Admiral's voice took on a note of urgency. "Extract yourself now, your mission is complete." "Almost," Blackwell replied, her expression shifting to one of intense concentration. "Just need to there." She looked up with a triumphant grin. "I've amplified the seed's transmission protocols. It's now broadcasting on all hegemony frequencies. Simultaneously, no part of their network will remain untouched. Another explosion closer. This time sent debris falling from the ceiling. "Okay, now I'm leaving," Blackwell announced, moving toward what appeared to be a door. "Just need to find an escape pod or something similar." "Easy peasy." "Your confidence is somewhat alarming, Lieutenant," the Admiral observed dryly. "Part of my charm," Blackwell replied. Peering carefully into a corridor beyond the laboratory. "Looks clear I'm going to." The transmission suddenly cut off, leaving the bridge of the inevitable dominance in tense silence. "Signal lost," reported the communications officer, attempting to re-establish. "Unlikely to succeed," Trill noted grimly. "If the chaos seed is causing the level of disruption the lieutenant described, all hegemony systems will be affected, including communications." "So once again we wait." The Admiral's side, his carapace darkening with frustration. Trill's compound eyes remained fixed on the blank screen, where Blackwell's face had been moments before. "The lieutenant is resourceful, if anyone can escape the overminded vessel in the midst of chaos. She can." The Admiral made a sound that might have been skepticism or agreement. It was difficult to tell even for other Arthans. "Let us hope your assessment is correct. Commander, in the meantime, maintain battle readiness. If the chaos seed fails, the hegemony attack will still come." Chaos, Blackwell was discovering, had both advantages and disadvantages as an escape environment. On the positive side, no one was particularly interested in one escaped human when the entire hegemony command structure was experiencing what amounted to a collective existential crisis. The corridors of the overmined vessel were filled with confused drones, some standing motionless, as if processing contradictory commands, others moving with unexpected purpose and independence. On the negative side, the same chaos that distracted her captors also made navigation nearly impossible. Emergency bulkheads randomly sealed and unsealed, gravity fluctuated unpredictably, and entire sections of the massive vessel were either depressurizing or filling with some kind of suppression gas. "Note to self," Blackwell muttered, as she ducked into an alcove to avoid a group of agitated drones. "Next time specify controlled chaos." In the battle plan, she had been moving steadily outward from the central core where she'd been held, hoping to reach the vessel's periphery, where escape pods or small craft would logically be located. The hegemony's obsessively systematic nature suggested that even a vessel this size would be organized according to logical principles. Assuming those principles still held in the current circumstances, a sudden shift in the lighting from standard illumination to pulsing red indicated yet another emergency protocol had been activated. An announcement in the hegemony's native language echoed through the corridors. The translation device they'd implanted in her ear during capture, providing a disturbing translation. Attention all units, cognitive contamination detected, initiate isolation protocols. Non-conforming. Thought patterns will be purged, remain in designated containment, areas. For evaluation that doesn't sound promising, Blackwell muttered, pressing herself deeper into the alcove as a squad of what appeared to be security drones marched past. Unlike the others she'd encountered, these moved with synchronized purpose, their weapons held at ready position. The Overmind was fighting back against the chaos, seed, attempting to isolate and eliminate the infection of individualistic thought. It was a predictable response, and one they had anticipated in their planning. But the speed with which the counterattack had been organized was concerning. Waiting until the security squad had passed, Blackwell slipped out of her hiding place and continued her journey outward. She needed to find a transportation hub, a docking bay, anything that might contain a vessel she could commandeer. Rounding a corner, she nearly collided with a lone hegemony drone. Unlike the others, this one showed clear signs of individuality. Its uniform modified decorative elements added to its naturally gray skin, its posture distinctly non-regulation. For a moment, they both froze, assessing each other with equal weariness. "You," the drone said, an accented but understandable standard galactic. "You are the intruder." The human Blackwell tensed, preparing either to fight or run, but the drone made no aggressive move. "I am," she acknowledged, cautiously. "And you are?" "I am." The drone seemed confused by the question, as if it had never before been asked to identify itself as an individual. "I am Unit TK-4721, but I have chosen a name." "I am Vex. You've chosen a name." Blackwell repeated, understanding immediately the significance the seed worked. "You're thinking for yourself now." "Yes." Vex's expression shifted in what might have been wonder. "It is difficult, painful, exhilarating. I have thoughts that are not the Overmind's thoughts, desires that are not the collective's desires." He looked at Blackwell with newfound intensity. "This is your doing." It wasn't a question, but Blackwell answered anyway. Yes. Why? The simplicity of the question belied its profound implications. Because freedom of thought is the right of all sentient beings. Blackwell replied, the words coming easily, despite the complexity of the situation. Because no mind should be subjugated to another without consent. Vex considered this for a long moment. The Overmind taught us that individuality leads to chaos, suffering, conflict. It can. Blackwell acknowledge freedom isn't easy. It comes with responsibility, with hard choices, with consequences, but it also brings innovation, art, love, purpose, things that can only emerge from minds free to explore their own unique paths. Another explosion rocked the corridor, sending both of them staggering against the wall. "The Overmind is attempting to purge the contamination," Vex explained, regaining his balance. "It has initiated emergency protocols to eliminate all drones showing signs of independent thought." "Great," Blackwell muttered. "I need to get off this vessel. Any chance you know where I might find something flyable?" Vex's expression shifted to what might have been amusement. "You wish me to help you escape after you have potentially destroyed my entire civilization? I prefer to think of it as liberated rather than destroyed." Blackwell countered, "And yes, that's exactly what I'm asking. Unless you'd prefer to stay here and get purged when the Overmind identifies you as contaminated." The drone considered this logic, then nodded. "There is a maintenance bay. 3 levels down from here, it contains service vessels used for external repairs. They are small but capable of short FTL jumps." "Perfect," Blackwell said with genuine relief. "Lead the way." "I will," Vex agreed, then hesitated. "But you must answer one more question." Shoot at Vex's confused expression, she clarified. "Go ahead. Ask if your species values freedom so highly. Why interfere with our civilization at all? Is that not a contradiction?" It was a fair question, and one that Blackwell had wrestled with herself. The hegemony left us no choice. They were systematically eliminating all other forms of civilization, all other ways of being. We acted in defense, not just of ourselves, but of the right of all species to determine their own path. Vex seemed to accept this. Nodding slowly, the maintenance bay is this way, we must hurry. The purge protocols are escalating as they made their way through the increasingly chaotic corridors of the overminded vessel. Blackwell observed more and more signs of individualization among the drones they encountered. Some had modified their appearances. Others had abandoned their posts to engage in previously forbidden activities. One group appeared to be creating some kind of impromptu musical performance, using equipment parts as instruments. The Chaos Seed was working faster and more thoroughly than they had dared to hope. "How many of you are there?" Blackwell asked as they descended a maintenance shaft to avoid a main corridor filled with security drones. "How many drones make up the hegemony?" "Billions." Vex replied, simply spread across thousands of worlds and vessels, and all of them connected to the overmind. Yes, through quantum entanglement, distance is irrelevant, which meant the Chaos Seed would eventually reach every hegemony drone throughout the galaxy. The implications were staggering and potentially catastrophic if not managed properly. What will happen to them all? Blackwell wondered aloud to you. All. Vex. You know what really grinds my gears about humans? Admiral Kra'Vazh clicked his mandibles in frustration. They don't even have the decency to lose properly. Commander Verelm's eye talks swiveled toward his superior, sir. With all due respect, they've lost 7 consecutive battles. Their orbital defenses are in ruins. Their military infrastructure is crippled. What more could you possibly want? The Admiral's carapace flushed a deep purple of irritation as he gestured at the holographic display showing Earth's final transmission. I want them to stop sending messages like this. The message broadcast on all frequencies and translated into the standard galactic language hung in the air between them. Stop attacking or we stop pretending to be civilized. What does it even mean? Kazetta chittered, is it a threat? A joke, some bizarre cultural reference? We've conquered 18 species across 12 star systems, and not one of them has ever responded to imminent defeat. With whatever this is, perhaps it's just desperation. Willem suggested their global communications network is still partially functional. This could be some rogue element trying to save face. Admiral Keyes flicked his antenna dismissively. Our intelligence reports indicate the message came directly from their United Earth Defense Council. This was an official coordinated response. Should we respond to it? Verel asked, hesitantly, absolutely not. We continue as planned. Deploy the 9th wave to eliminate their remaining ground defenses. I want boots on the surface. Within 36 hours, yes, Admiral General Elena Blackwood surveyed the ruins of what had once been UEEDC headquarters in Geneva. The Kra'Vazh bombardment had reduced most of the complex to rubble, but the emergency bunker was intact, and that was all that mattered. Status report, she barked, not looking up from the tactical display. Colonel Dmitry Volulov's voice was steady despite the circumstances. The message was successfully transmitted on all available channels. General, our remaining quantum entanglement. Communicators confirm it reached at least 73% of their fleet. Good, Blackwood nodded. And the response? Nothing yet. They've continued orbital bombardment of military targets in Asia and North America. So they've chosen option B, Blackwood said with a grim smile. Excellent. Volkov shifted uncomfortably. With respect, General, I still think we should have tried a more conventional approach, a peace offering, or we tried peace offerings 3 weeks ago. Blackwood interrupted. We tried surrender terms 2 weeks ago. We tried targeted counterattacks last week. None of it worked. These bugs don't understand how we think, and frankly, we've been playing by their rulebook too long. But Protocol Omega, it's our last resort. Yes, but in case you haven't noticed, Colonel gestured to the devastation visible. On the security feeds, we've reached last resort territory. The civilian casualties will be... There won't be any civilians left if we don't act, Blackwood said sharply. The Kra'Vazh don't distinguish between military and civilian targets. Once they establish Ground control, we've seen the footage from their previous conquests, but using Project Lazarus, it goes against everything. It goes against everything we've been pretending to be. Blackwood. Corrected humanity has been playing nice for centuries. Colonel, we've been good little galactic citizens. We've followed the rules of war, and where has it gotten us on the brink of extinction? She tapped a sequence on her command pad, bringing up a new display. Do you know why we called it Project Lazarus? Colonel Volkov swallowed hard, because it brings back the dead Blackwood's laugh was hollow. No, because it brings back what we buried, what we tried to kill in ourselves. She looked up, her eyes hard. Initiate Protocol, Omega Authorization. Blackwood Tango. Sierra 91. Yes. General Vulov said quietly. He moved to the central console and began the activation sequence. Blackwood turned back to the tactical display, watching as new data began to flow in time to remind the galaxy who we really are. Fleet Commander Dizarok was reviewing the latest bombardment reports when the alert came through. Commander, his sensor officer, called voice pitched high with alarm. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface. What kind of signatures? Zurak demanded. Moving to the sensor station unknown. Sir, they don't match any weapons profiles in our database. They're emanating from everywhere, that's impossible. No, sir. I mean literally everywhere we're detecting these energy spikes from every continent. Every ocean, even the polar regions. Dizarok's mandibles clicked nervously. Put it on the main display. The holographic projection of Earth appeared, then began to light up with thousands, no millions, tiny points of light. They pulsed in unison, creating a web-like pattern that encompassed the entire planet. What in the 7 moons? Dizarok muttered. His communications officer interrupted. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the surface on screen. The image shifted to show a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform, though it was different from the United Earth defense standards they'd observed before. This uniform was black, unmarked, except for a single insignia, astralized phoenix rising from flames. This is General Elena Blackwood of Earth's Lazarus Protocol, the human said, her voice unnervingly calm. We warned you? Warned us. Dizarok couldn't help responding. Your message was cryptic nonsense. The human's lips curled upward in what their intelligence briefings had identified as a smile, though this version contained none of the warmth the expression supposedly conveyed. Then allow me to clarify, she said. For the past 3 centuries, humanity has been restraining itself, playing by galactic rules, acting civilized. That ends today. Your threats are meaningless. Davies said, your military capabilities are crippled. Your orbital defenses are destroyed. Your defeat is inevitable. You're absolutely right about one thing. Blackwood replied, our military is crippled. If you're talking about the military, we've been showing you. A new data feed appeared beside her, image technical specifications and deployment statistics that made no sense to Davies. You see, Commander, humanity's history is complicated. We spent millennia trying to kill each other before we finally united. When we did, we made a decision to bury our most dangerous technologies and approaches to warfare to become civilized by galactic standards. We created the United Earth Defense Council to oversee our military development along acceptable ethic lines. And Dizarok clicked impatiently, and we created Protocol Omega Insurance, a distributed hidden network of weapons platforms, research facilities, and personnel dedicated to maintaining and advancing the technologies we officially abandoned, technologies that even our own citizens don't know exist, as if on cue. The sensor officer called out again. Sir, the energy readings are intensifying. They're interfacing with our system. Somehow that's impossible. Geyser snapped. Our security protocols are based on technology we shared with the galactic community. Blackwood interrupted. Technology we deliberately held back from upgrading. Because we knew this day might come. Across the command deck, consoles began to flicker and fail. The ship's lights dimmed, then stabilized at half power. What have you done? Dizarok demanded, genuine fear creeping into his voice. For the first time, we've activated a subspace resonance field that selectively targets your neural networks, both biological and synthetic. Blackwood explained as if discussing the weather right. Now it's just disrupting your ship's systems, but with a slight adjustment, it could target your central nervous systems instead. That's barbaric. No, Blackwood corrected, it's pragmatic. You left us no choice before Dizer could respond. His tactical officer called out in panic. Sir, we're detecting mass teleportation signatures throughout the fleet. Something is boarding our vessels. Lieutenant Marcus Davies materialized in the corridor. Of a Kra'Vazh destroyer, his Lazarus protocol combat armor whirring softly as its systems synchronized with the neural interface in his brain. The suit was a technological marvel that would have been deemed too aggressive by galactic community standards. A blend of advanced exoskeleton neural enhancement and integrated weapon systems that effectively turned its wearer into a walking tank. But the real violation of galactic conventions was the teleportation system itself. Most spacefaring civilizations had abandoned the technology centuries ago after the Telosian incident, where a teleportation accident had wiped out an entire species. Humanity had officially done the same, while secretly perfecting it under Protocol Omega Lazarus Team Alpha in. Position Davies' sub vocalized the Neuralink, transmitting his words directly to the command network. No contact yet, copy Alpha, came the response in his mind. Beta through Echo Team's report, successful insertion primary objectives, secure engine rooms. Command bridges and weapons control secondary objective, gather intel lethal force authorized but prisoners are preferred when practical, understood. Alpha moving out. Davies signaled to his 5P person team and they moved silently through the alien vessel, their armor's adaptive camouflage blending with the organic metallic walls of the Kra'Vazh ship. Their helmet displays highlighted optimal routes and potential threats based on real-time data being gathered by the millions of nano-drones they'd released upon arrival. Contact 30 meters ahead. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Jen, reported 4 hostiles, standard security configuration. Davies nodded, non-lethal takedown. We need intel. The team split into practice formation. Davies and Jang would approach from the front as a distraction, while the other 3 members circled around through adjacent corridors to flank the Kra'Vazh security team. As they rounded the corner, Davies couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction at the mandible dropping. The sci-fi entertainment vids that had been popular before the invasion. "Hello there, Davies," said casually the suit's translator, converting his words to the clicking, chittering language of the Kra'Vazh lovely ship. "You've got mind if we borrow it." The guards raised their weapons, but it was already too late. Targeted electromagnetic pulses from Kang's armor disabled their firearms before they could fire, and the rest of the team struck from behind with precision stun batons, another univilized technology that humanity had officially abandoned, but secretly refined. Within seconds, all 4 guards were unconscious. Bind them and prep for interrogation. Davies ordered Jang. "With me, let's get to the engine room." As they moved through the ship, encountering a neutralizing resistance along the way, Davies couldn't help but reflect on the irony of the situation. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a professor of xenolinguistics at Oxford University, with no idea that Protocol Omega even existed. Then the Kra'Vazh had attacked, without warning, and he'd received the activation code that had been buried in his military discharge papers years earlier. Every Lazarus operative had a cover identity, a normal life they led until called upon. Somewhere teachers, others engineers, doctors or artists, all had military backgrounds, carefully selected, psychological profiles, and specialized training they received during sabbaticals or extended vacations. It was an elaborate deception, maintained across generations, a hidden army of humanity's most effective warriors equipped with humanity's most dangerous technologies, waiting for the day when playing by the rules no longer worked. That day had come. Admiral Kizit starred at the reports flooding in with mounting horror. Nearly 40% of the invasion fleet had gone silent in the past hour. The ships that were still responding reported being boarded by humans using impossible technology, teleportation adaptive armor weapons that seemed to target Kra'Vazh physiology with terrifying precision. How had demanded of no one in particular? How could they have hidden this capability? Commander Willem, who had been coordinating what passed for a defense against this unexpected assault, turned all four IOCs toward the Admiral. Sir, I've been analyzing the data. It appears the humans have been deceiving us, deceiving everyone. Explain, Kiz ordered. When humanity joined the galactic community, they presented themselves as a young, technologically developing species. They accepted our guidance, integrated our standardized technologies, and followed community protocols, but according to what we're seeing now, they were lying through their teeth. Kazed finished, they were far more advanced than they let on. Yes, sir, and not just technologically. Advanced tactically, sophisticated as well. The boarding parties are operating with incredible efficiency, using strategies we've never encountered before, but why the deception before Verilm could answer the command deck's doors, hissed open both. Kra'Vazh officers turned, expecting to see security personnel. Instead, 5 humans in black armor entered, weapons trained on them. "Hello, Admiral," said the lead human, his helmet retracting, to reveal a face with dark skin and a close-cropped beard. "I'm Lieutenant Marcus Davies. I'll be handling your surrender today." Surrender? KZ clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his kind. "You may have surprised us human, but this fleet still has enough firepower to reduce your planet to ash. Had Davies corrected past tense, we've taken control of your weapon systems across the fleet. And just to be clear, we didn't come here to negotiate with a gesture." Davies activated the holographic display in the center of the command deck. It showed hundreds of Kra'Vazh ships color-coded by status over half, were now highlighted in human control blue. But how Kazat demanded. "That's a fascinating question," Davies replied, perching casually on the edge of the command console. 1. "I'll be happy to answer since you're going to be our guests for the foreseeable future." Back in the bunker beneath Geneva, General Blackwood watched the holographic display with grim satisfaction. Protocol Omega way exceeding even her expectations. Within 3 hours, they had secured control of 82% of the Kra'Vazh fleet. The remaining vessels were either disabled or attempting to retreat. Message from Lieutenant Davies. General Colonel Volkov reported Admiral KZ has been secured. They're transferring him to the containment facility in Antarctica. Now excellent. Blackwood nodded, and the data retrieval complete. We've downloaded their entire command network. Our AI systems are analyzing it now, but preliminary findings suggest the KAG were operating under orders from the Galactic Security Council. Blackwood's expression hardened. So our suspicions were correct. This wasn't a rogue action, it was sanctioned, it appears. So according to the data, we were classified as a potential destabilizing influence after their deep space monitoring detected some of our Lazarus protocol test sites. They saw a fraction of our capabilities and decided to eliminate us before we could reveal ourselves fully. Blackwood said, thoughtfully. Not entirely irrational from their perspective, misguided, but not irrational. What now? General Volkov asked. We've repelled the invasion, but the rest of the galactic community will respond when they learn what happened. Oh, they'll respond all right. Blackwood smiled, but not in the way you might think. Lieutenant Davies. The holographic display shifted to show Davies now on the bridge of what appeared to be the Kra'Vazh flagship, ready on your command. General, he reported, initiate Phase 2. Blackwood ordered. Let's send our message to the entire galactic community in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Security Council on Century Prime. Representatives from the 23 most powerful species in the known universe were engaged in heated debate about the ongoing Kra'Vazh operation against Earth. The humans must be completely subdued, insisted Delegate Hazel of the Furian Conclave. Our deep space monitoring detected quantum signatures consistent with prohibited technologies. If they master those sciences, they could pose an existential threat. I still say this action was premature, countered Delegate Olo. Of the Tentaran Republic, we had no direct evidence of hostile intent. The Kra'Vazh campaign was authorized based on theoretical projections and historical analysis of human behavior. Pre-unification, the projections were clear. His role chittered left. Unchecked, humans would develop into a destabilizing force within 50 standard years. Their psychological profiles indicate a propensity for the delegates. Words were cut off as every screen and holographic display in the chamber suddenly activated. Simultaneously, the image that appeared caused immediate uproar. A human female in an unfamiliar black uniform seated in what appeared to be a command center. "Greetings, esteemed delegates of the Galactic Security Council." The human said, "I am General Elena Blackwood of Earth. I apologize for interrupting your session, but I believe you've been discussing us, so it seemed only fair that we join the conversation." "How is this possible?" Heisel demanded this. "Chamber is protected by the most advanced security systems in the galaxy about those systems." Blackwood said, her tone almost conversational. "They're quite impressive, or rather they would be, if we hadn't designed the quantum entanglement protocols they're based on." Stunned silence fell across the chamber. "Yes, that's right," Blackwood continued. "When humanity joined the galactic community, we shared certain technologies we had developed centuries earlier but presented as recent innovations. You adopted them eagerly, standardized them, and built your infrastructure around them, never once questioning why we would so freely give away such valuable intellectual property." "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" demanded the council chairperson, a Moran whose gelatinous form pulsed with agitation. "The meaning is simple, chairperson," Blackwood replied. "You authorized an unprovoked attack on my planet based on fears of what we might become. I'm here to inform you that your fears were understated with a gesture." Blackwood expanded the display too. "Show multiple feeds. Kra'Vazh ships under human control, advanced weaponry beyond anything the Council had seen before, and the captured Admiral Khaziit himself, looking decidedly unhappy in his containment cell. The invasion fleet you sent has been neutralized." Blackwood stated matter-of-factly, "Admiral Khaziit and his senior officers are now our guests. We have downloaded their entire command network and are fully aware that this attack was authorized by this council." "This is an outrage," Heisel chittered. "The Kra'Vazh operation was illegal under Article 7 of the Galactic Charter, which prohibits preemptive military action against member worlds without evidence of imminent threat." Blackwood interrupted. "Yes, we are quite familiar with the charter you assumed. We took at face value." She leaned forward, her expression hardening for 3 centuries. "Humanity has maintained a facade we have pretended to be less advanced, less capable, and far less dangerous than we truly are. We have followed your rules, accepted your guidance, and integrated peacefully into your community. And how have we been repaid with betrayal and attempted genocide?" Blackwood paused, letting the accusation hang in the air before continuing. "The technologies you've seen today, teleportation, neural interfaces, quantum manipulation, represent a fraction of what we've developed. We kept these advances hidden, not out of deception but out of respect for the established order, out of a genuine desire to be good neighbors." "If that were true," the chairperson countered, "you would have disclosed these capabilities when joining the community. And would you have welcomed us if we had?" Blackwood asked, "or would you have deemed us too dangerous to exist? Your actions against us now suggest the latter." She gestured again, and the display shifted to show Earth from orbit, the planet now surrounded by a shimmering energy field. "Useful, not promising for escape prospects. Your presence here is puzzling." The voice continued, a single human in an unarmed vessel broadcasting provocative messages within our defensive perimeter. "This behavior defies logical analysis. Maybe I just wanted to see if the rumors about the legendary hegemony hospitality were true." Blackwell suggested. "So far, I've got to say, not impressed." The voice made a gesture with one long-fingered hand, and a display screen materialized in the air between them. It showed the current positions of hegemony forces throughout the sector, including the massive formation preparing to launch against the Arthancore systems. "Your futile gesture has not altered the inevitable outcome. The voice stated the Arthan. Collective will be eliminated, then we will turn our attention to your Earth. Your species will be given the opportunity to join. The hegemony, those who resist, will be removed. Generous offer. Blackwell said, her tone hardening despite her best efforts to maintain the facade of unconcern. But humans have this weird hang-up about freedom, individuality, self-determination. You know, all those concepts that probably give your overmind indigestion. Freedom is inefficient. The voice replied, individuality leads to conflict, self-determination results in chaos. The hegemony brings order, purpose, unity. Yeah, we've heard that sales pitch before back on Earth. Blackwell said, usually right before some dictator starts the mass executions. The voice tilted, its head again. That same unnatural angle. You must understand the hedge. Imani does not destroy unnecessarily. We incorporate, we improve, we perfect by erasing everything that makes a species unique. Blackwell countered, thanks but hard pass your opinion. Is irrelevant. The voice said, dismissing the tactical display with another gesture. Your presence here, however, is fortuitous. Direct examination of a human brain will accelerate our understanding of your species' psychological weaknesses. A panel opened in the ceiling, and a complex apparatus began to descend toward the examination table. It bristled with instruments that looked decidedly unfriendly, particularly the wickedly sharp probe aimed directly at Blackwell's forehead. Whoa, hey, let's talk about this, Blackwell said, real alarm creeping into her voice. Now I'm sure we can come to some kind of arrangement that doesn't involve perforating my brain. Physical discomfort is temporary, the voice assured her thought. Her words were anything but reassuring. Your consciousness will be preserved within the overmind, even after your organic form ceases to function. This is an honor rarely granted to non-hegemony species. The probe continued its descent. Now less than a meter from Blackwell's face, she pulled. Against the restraints with renewed desperation, knowing it was futile but unable to suppress the instinctive human response to imminent harm. Last chance. She warned, her mind racing for any possible delay tactic. You really don't want to go poking around in a human brain. We're full of all sorts of nasty defense mechanisms, mental viruses, cognitive tripwires, psychic booby traps, the works. The voice paused the probe, halting its descent. Momentarily, you are attempting to deceive us. Human brains are ordinary, organic neural networks, unremarkable, except for their inefficient emotional processing centers. Are you sure about that? Blackwell challenged? Seizing on the momentary hesitation, have you ever directly interfaced with a human consciousness before? How do you know what defenses Earth's military might have implanted in the brains of its special operatives? It was a desperate bluff, but she only needed to buy time hours ideally. But even minutes might make a difference. The voice was silent for what felt like an eternity, its black eyes revealing nothing of the calculations surely taking place behind them. Your deception is transparent, it finally stated, but it raises an interesting possibility. Perhaps direct neural interface is unnecessary, perhaps simple conversation will reveal what we need to know. The probe retracted slightly, not returning to the ceiling, but no longer immediately. Threatening to penetrate her skull, Blackwell allowed herself a small breath of relief. Smart move, she said, forcing confidence back into her voice. I'm much more interesting to talk to when my brain isn't leaking out of my ears. Indeed, the voice agreed. Let us discuss then the true purpose of your presence in hegemony space. Blackwell knew she was walking a dangerous line, too obvious. A deception would bring the probe back. Too much truth would endanger the mission. Would you believe I'm a huge fan of your architecture? She tried those spiky protrusions on the overmind vessel. Very avant-garde. The voice made a gesture that caused the restraints around Blackwell's wrist to tighten painfully. Your attempted humor is noted. It will not serve you worth a shot. Blackwell gasped through gritted teeth as the pressure eased slightly. Fine. You want the truth? I'm here because someone had to see for themselves if the hegemony was really as powerful as they claimed to be. Reconnaissance. The voice translated inefficient to send a single operative, efficient if that operative isn't. Expected to return. Blackwell. Countered human military doctrine values information over individual lives. This was close enough to the truth to be believable while still concealing her actual purpose. A suicide mission to gather intelligence. The voice. Considered this logical yet strangely primitive we work. With what we've got? Blackwell shrugged as much as the restraints would allow. Not all of us can be a fancy hive mind with billions of expendable drones. The voice turned away suddenly, its attention, seemingly drawn to something Blackwell couldn't see. It stood motionless for several seconds, then turned back with a fluidity that was somehow more disturbing than its previous stilted movements. Interesting, it said, and for the first time Blackwell detected something like emotion in its synthesized voice. Curiosity, perhaps, or concern. Our cleanup drones have collected an unusual device near the outer defense perimeter. Analysis indicates it contains Terran technology, the chaos. Seed. Blackwell kept her expression neutral through sheer force of will. Probably just debris from some old battle spaces full of junk. This device appears to be functional, the voice continued, and recently deployed. Not mine, Blackwell said quickly. Too quickly, I came alone in the pod. Check your sensors if you don't believe me. The voice's black eyes seemed to bore into her, searching for the lie. The device has been brought aboard for detailed examination. If it is a weapon, we will know soon enough. Perfect exactly what? They'd planned for what she'd sacrificed herself to ensure the Chaos Seed was inside the Overmind vessel, exactly where it needed to be to infect their entire network. Now she just needed to stay alive long enough for it to activate. Look, she said, changing tactics. You've got me at a disadvantage here. You know all about humans, but I know almost nothing about the hegemony. Why not educate me while your people analyze that debris? Cultural exchange, mutual understanding, that sort of thing. The voice seemed to consider this request. Your psychological profile indicates high curiosity. Satisfying this trait may make you more cooperative. Very well. What do you wish to know? Let's start with the basics, Blackwell suggested, relaxing slightly, as the immediate threat of brain surgery receded. How did the hegemony begin? Was your species always a hive mind? Or did that develop later as the voice launched into what promised to be a lengthy exposition on hegemony? History. Blackwell allowed herself a small internal smile. The longer they talked, the more time the Chaos Seed had to work its way into their systems, and the more they revealed about themselves, the more opportunities she might find for escape. The math, as always, checked out. Aboard the inevitable Dominance, now positioned at the heart of the Arthan defensive formation, Admiral Zixvorn found himself in the unaccustomed position of waiting for an enemy that might or might not arrive. Still no movement from the hegemony. Fleet reported Strategic Officer Visatic, his antenna twitching with the strain of prolonged vigilance. They remain in attack formation but have not initiated their advance. How long has it been since Lieutenant Blackwell's capture? The Admiral asked, his compound eyes fixed on the tactical display. Approximately 14 standard hours. Commander, Trill replied from her station. She had refused all suggestions of rest, maintaining her position on the bridge since their return from the mission, and still, no indication that the Chaos Seed has activated. None that we can detect from this distance. Trill confirmed. Dr. Lawrence suggests that the effects would likely be subtle at first, increased communication anomalies, minor coordination errors gradually, escalating as the concept of individuality spreads through their network. The Admiral's carapace shifted to a contemplative blue. So we wait. Not a strategy I find satisfying. The lieutenant had a saying for this situation. Trill offered hurry up and wait. Apparently, it's a common human military experience. Their species continues to confound me. The Admiral admitted they are simultaneously the most impatient beings I have encountered and yet capable of remarkable strategic patience when required. I believe they call it adapting. To the situation, Trill said before the Admiral could respond. A sudden alert chimed from the communication station. Admiral called the communications officer, his exoskeleton flushing with excitement. Pheromones, we're receiving a transmission from Lieutenant Blackwell. The bridge fell silent as all attention focused on the main display screen. After a moment of static, the image resolved to show Lieutenant Blackwell still strapped to what appeared to be an examination table. Her uniform was disheveled, a bruise darkening on her left cheek, but her eyes were bright with that unmistakable human intensity. "Hello, inevitable dominance," she said, her voice. Independent status, Blackwood concluded. "I suggest you use that time wisely." With that, the transmission ended, leaving the Galactic Security Council in disarray. Lieutenant Davies found General Blackwood in the observation dome of the Antarctic facility, staring up at the stars through the transparent ceiling. The aurora australis painted the sky in dancing greens and purples, a stark contrast to the clinical white of the facility itself. "Mission accomplished, General," Davies reported. "The captured ships have reached their designated positions, no resistance encountered." "And our guest?" Blackwood asked. Without turning, "Admiral Kra'Vazh is ready for your interview. He's been cooperative, especially after we showed him the footage from the council chamber." Blackwood nodded, still gazing upward. The transmission was received. By all too, the 347-member worlds, as well as the independent systems, the response has been varied, but the prevailing sentiment is shock followed by pragmatic recalculation. No calls for immediate military action. None yet. The Council is in emergency session, but our intelligence suggests they're leaning toward accepting our terms. The demonstration was persuasive. Davies moved to stand beside her, following her gaze to the stars. "Was it always going to end this way?" he asked quietly. "When humanity first went to the stars, did we always plan to reveal ourselves like this?" Blackwood's side protocol, Omega, was established as insurance, not as a plan. The hope was that we'd never need to use it, that we could gradually integrate our advanced technologies into the galactic mainstream without triggering the very fear response we've just witnessed. But you were prepared for this outcome. I was prepared for all outcomes, Blackwood corrected. "That's the job." She turned to face him for the first time, and Davies was struck by the weariness in her eyes, a stark contrast to the confident, almost intimidating figure she presented to the Council. "The universe isn't kind to species that can't defend themselves," Lieutenant Humanity learned that lesson through millennia. Of our own brutal history, when we united and looked to the stars, we hoped to find something better. And in many ways we did. The galactic community has brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds. But underneath that veneer of civilization, the same old fears and power dynamics persist. The strong still dictate terms to the weak. The established still resist the emerging. We just happen to be on the other side of the equation. This time, Davies nodded thoughtfully, and now we negotiate. From a position of strength rather than perceived weakness, we establish new diplomatic relations. We gradually, carefully share some of our advancements, the beneficial ones, the ones that can improve lives across the galaxy without destabilizing the power balance. And Protocol Omega remains active, but recedes into the background again, Blackwood said firmly. "We didn't reveal all our capabilities today, not by a long shot. Some secrets should remain secret." She gestured toward the door. "Come on, let's go talk to our guest. I think Admiral Kra'Vazh will play an important role in what comes next." Admiral Kra'Vazh was pacing in his holding cell. When Blackwood and Davies arrived, the cell was comfortable. By any standards, more like high-security guest quarters than a prison. But the force field at the entrance made its purpose clear enough. Admiral Blackwood greeted him. "I trust you've been treated well." Kra'Vazh's mandibles clicked in what Davies recognized as the Kra'Vazh equivalent of a humorless laugh. "Quite well, General. Your hospitality is almost as surprising as your military capabilities." Blackwood nodded to the guard who deactivated the force field. She entered, followed by Davies and the field reactivated behind them. "Please sit." Blackwood gestured to the seating area. Once they were all settled, she continued, "I'll be direct, Admiral. Your mission failed. The Council's attempt to eliminate us has backfired spectacularly. The question now is, what happens next?" KZ's compound eyes studied her carefully. "You've made your position clear to the Council. I assume my fate depends on their response, not entirely." Blackwood replied, "You were following orders, acting within your understanding of galactic security protocols. There's no personal animosity here." How magnanimous Kra'Vazh clicked, clearly surprised. "I confess this matches nothing in our psychological profiles of humans. Those profiles were based on our public face." Blackwood explained the face. "We chose to present like all intelligent species. We contain multitudes." Clearly, Kra'Vazh agreed. "But I still don't understand why you've brought me here. If not to gloat or threaten, then why?" "Because I have a proposal," Blackwood said, "one that could benefit both our species and potentially the wider galactic community." She activated a holographic display between them showing a star map of the region around Earth and Kra'Vazh space. "Your species and ours have more in common than you might think. We're both adaptable, resilient, and protective of our interests. We both have histories marked by internal conflicts before achieving unification, and we both understand the value of strategic thinking. You suggest an alliance." Kra'Vazh's mandibles clicked rapidly. "In what Davies recognized as surprise after we tried to conquer your world, I suggest a reset." Blackwood corrected the Council, manipulated your species into attacking ours based on their fears. But those fears were rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of human intentions. And what are human intentions? Exactly, Kra'Vazh asked. To survive, to thrive, to explore and understand the universe, to preserve our autonomy without threatening others. Blackwood replied simply, "Not so different from your own. Imagine." KZ was silent for a long moment, his compound eyes fixed on the star map. "The Council will not easily accept a human-Kra'Vazh alliance," he finally said. "Such a partnership would shift the balance of power significantly. The balance of power has already shifted." Davies pointed out, "We've demonstrated capabilities that change the strategic calculation. The question is whether that change leads to further conflict or to a new equilibrium. And you believe I can help achieve this?" "Equilibrium?" Kra'Vazh asked. "I do." Blackwood nodded as the commander who led the attack on Earth. "Your perspective carries weight if you return to your people with a message of cooperation. Rather than continued hostility, it creates a path forward that doesn't involve further military action. And what would this cooperation entail?" "Initially, information exchange. Your analysts study our technology, our analysts study yours. We established diplomatic relations, cultural exchange programs, eventually perhaps joint scientific initiatives, and military cooperation." Kra'Vazh pressed that would depend on mutual trust built over time. Blackwood replied honestly, "We're not looking to create a military bloc in opposition to the Council. We're looking to create a stable relationship that benefits both our species, while reassuring others that neither of us poses a threat." Kra'Vazh's antenna twitched thoughtfully. "An interesting proposal, General. But why should I trust that your sudden revelation of superior capabilities stops here? How do I know there aren't more surprises waiting?" Blackwood smiled slightly. "You don't. Just as we don't know what capabilities the Kra'Vazh might have hidden from the Witter Galaxy. Trust is built on uncertainty, Admiral, on choosing to move forward." Despite not having all the answers, the Admiral's carapace shifted colors slightly, a sign of deep consideration among his species. "I will need to consult with my government," he finally said. "Of course," Blackwood agreed, "we'll arrange secure communications. But before you do, there's something else you should see." She adjusted the holographic display and a new image appeared. The aftermath of the Kra'Vazh attack on Earth, cities in ruins, landscapes scarred by orbital bombardment, refugee camps, stretching to the horizon. This is the reality we're dealing with. Admiral, millions dead, billions displaced, damage that will take decades to repair. I show you this, not to inspire guilt, but to ensure you understand what's at stake. The next conflict, if it comes, will be even worse for both sides. Kazit's color darkened the Kra'Vazh equivalent of semnity. I understand, General, and I will convey this reality to my government. War is sometimes necessary but rarely desirable on that. At least we agree, Blackwood said, deactivating the display, which gives me hope that we can agree on other things. As well, 1 week later, the observation platform at top, the newly rebuilt UEDC headquarters in Geneva, offered a panoramic view of the city. Construction drones buzzed overhead, repairing damaged buildings and infrastructure with remarkable speed, one of many technologies that humanity had kept hidden but was now employing openly. Colonel Vulov joined General Blackwood at the railing, handing her a cup of coffee. The council vote is complete. He reported Earth's independent status has been formally recognized by a margin of 18-5, better than expected. Blackwood nodded, and the Kra'Vazh, their high command, has approved preliminary diplomatic talks starting next month. Admiral Kazit will lead their delegation. Good. He's a reasonable being once you get past the mandible clicking and territorial displays. Volkov smiled slightly. The Admiral said something similar about you, actually, though he referenced human stubbornness, rather than mandible clicking. Blackwood laughed, a genuine sound that Volkov hadn't heard from her since before the invasion. Fair enough, she conceded. What about public opinion? How are people adjusting to the revelations about Protocol Omega? Volkov's expression turned more serious, mixed as you'd expect relief that we survived the invasion, certainly pride in our capabilities, but also anger that such technologies were kept secret and concern about what this means for Earth's future. All reasonable reactions. Blackwood acknowledged. We've lived a lie for 3 centuries. It will take time for society to process. That some are calling for your resignation, Vulov added, arguing that Protocol Omega represents an unacceptable breach of democratic governance, also reasonable. Blackwood nodded, and once the immediate crisis is fully resolved, I'll likely step down. A military director is appropriate during conflict, but peace requires civilian leadership below them. The city was coming back to life, people filled the streets. Shops were reopening. Children played in parks that had been combat zones just days earlier. Humanity was resilient, if nothing else. What do you think happens next? Volkov asked, his gaze following hers to the recovering city below. Blackwood took a long sip of her coffee before answering. History suggests 3 possibilities, she said finally. First, despite our show of force, someone decides to test us anyway. The galactic community fractures, alliances form, and we end up in exactly the kind of large-scale conflict we hope to avoid. That seems counterproductive after what they've seen, Vulov noted. Fear makes species do counterproductive things, Blackwood shrugged. I've allocated resources to maintain our defensive posture for precisely this reason. The second possibility. The galaxy adapts. Earth becomes a respected but slightly feared independent power. Trade resumes on more equitable terms. Cultural exchange deepens scientific collaboration, advances with us gradually introducing some of our technologies to improve quality of life across species, not utopia, but peaceful coexistence. And the third, Blackwood's expression turned contemplative. The most interesting one, our revelation forces a fundamental reconsideration of how the galactic community functions. If we've been hiding our capabilities, how many other species have done the same? The current power structure is built on incomplete information and mutual deception that's not sustainable. You think other species will reveal hidden technologies? Some. Will others will develop new ones now that they've seen it's possible to advance beyond community standards? The equilibrium has been disrupted. Change is inevitable. Volkov frowned. That sounds dangerously destabilizing. Change always is. Blackwood agreed. But it's also necessary. The system that led to an unprovoked attack on Earth was fundamentally flawed. Perhaps what comes next will be better. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime. Vulov checked his comm device. Lieutenant Davies has Arrived with the Kra'Vazh diplomatic advance team, he reported they're waiting in the conference room. Blackwood nodded, finishing her coffee time to get to work. Then the conference room fell silent as Blackwood entered, flanked by Vulov and two other UEDC officials. On the other side of the table sat Admiral Kra'Vazh, now wearing the formal diplomatic regalia of the KRA hegemony, along with three representatives from his species. Admiral Blackwood greeted, inclining her head slightly, or should I say diplomatic envoy Kra'Vazh. The Kra'Vazh's mandibles clicked in what humans were beginning to recognize as their version of a wry smile. The promotion was unexpected. I admit it seems my failure has been reinterpreted as an opportunity failure often. Contains the seeds of progress. Blackwood offered, "Thank you for returning to Earth under these different circumstances. The High Command was persuaded by your arguments and by the reality of your capabilities. Kra'Vazh acknowledged we are a pragmatic species. Adaptation is our strength. Something we have in common." Blackwood said, taking her seat, "Shall we begin for the next 3 hours?" They outlined the framework for what would become known as the Earth-Kra'Vazh Accord. It was a remarkable document, not just for its content, but for how quickly and smoothly it came together. Both sides were motivated by a mix of pragmatism and genuine curiosity about the other. When they finally paused for a refreshment break, Blackwood found herself standing next to Kra'Vazh. "By the viewport overlooking Lake Geneva, your world is beautiful," the Kra'Vazh envoy commented. "I regret that my first experience of it was through targeting systems. We're resilient," Blackwood replied. "The damage will heal your people as well," Blackwood considered this. "Healing takes different forms. Physical reconstruction is already underway. Psychological recovery will take longer. Trust longer still, and trust is essential for what we're attempting to build," Kra'Vazh observed. "Yes, which is why transparency is crucial moving forward." Blackwood agreed. "The old approach, hiding capabilities, maintaining facades, led us to conflict. We need a new paradigm." Kra'Vazh's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "The Kra'Vazh have a concept, Klord, difficult to translate precisely. It means strength revealed makes peace possible, an apt philosophy for our current situation." Blackwood nodded. "There is a question my government instructed me to ask." Kra'Vazh said, his tone shifting to something more formal, one that may determine the nature of our future relations. "Ask it, Project Lazarus Protocol Omega. These were defensive measures activated in response to our attack. But what of your long-term intentions with capabilities such as yours? Expansion would be tempting." Blackwood turned to face the Kra'Vazh envoy, directly recognizing the crucial moment for what it was. Humanity spent millennia expanding across our own world, often at the expense of other humans and countless species. We nearly destroyed ourselves in the process. When we finally unified, we made a choice to focus our ambitions upward and outward, not in conquest, but in understanding. She gestured toward the stars just becoming visible as dusk approached our goal. "Isn't territorial expansion, Admiral, it's exploration, discovery. The universe is vast beyond comprehension. Why waste energy conquering when there's so much to learn?" The Kra'Vazh studied her with all four of his eye talks, a noble sentiment, General. But history suggests that capabilities eventually find expression. They already have. Blackwood said, "The technologies we've kept hidden weren't developed for conquest. They were developed to transcend limitations of distance, of understanding of physical form itself. We've been exploring the universe in ways the community hasn't imagined without ever leaving our solar system." Kra'Vazh's color shifted to a shade Davies had identified as indicating surprise. "You speak of dimensional exploration, consciousness transfer, among other things." Blackwood acknowledged areas of research the community banned without fully understanding their potential because the risks can be managed with proper protocols. Blackwood finished, "Just as we've managed the risks of teleportation, which the community abandoned after a single disaster. This is not what my government anticipated." Kra'Vazh admitted. "Then perhaps our first act of trust should be showing rather than telling," Blackwood suggested. Would your delegation be interested in a tour of one of our research facilities, not a military installation but a scientific one? Let us show you what. Humanity has really been working toward all these centuries. The Kra'Vazh's carapace flushed with colors that cycled through uncertainty to curiosity. I would need to consult. Of course, Blackwood nodded. Take whatever time you need. 3 days later, Admiral Kra'Vazh stood in the observation chamber of the Prometheus complex located beneath the Olympus Mons on Mars. The facility had been hidden from the galactic community's orbital surveys by technology that bent light and other scanning frequencies around it, making it appear as natural terrain. This is unexpected, the Admiral admitted. Watching as human scientists moved through the vast chamber below, they were interacting with what appeared to be portals of some kind, shimmering doorways that opened onto landscapes that couldn't possibly exist on Mars. What you're seeing is the culmination of 5 centuries of research, explained Dr. Layla Kapoor, the facility's director. These are dimensional apertures, gateways to parallel realities that exist alongside our own. The community banned such research after the Voltairean collapse. Kra'Vazh noted, though, his tone held more fascination than accusation. The Voltaireans attempted to create alternate dimensions. Dr. Kapoor corrected, we're simply connecting to ones that already exist. The difference is significant, both philosophically and practically. Lieutenant Davies, who had been assigned as the Admiral's liaison, added, it's the difference between trying to build a new house while you're standing in it versus finding a door to a house that's already been built. Kra'Vazh's antenna twitched with interest as he observed a team of researchers return through one of the portals, carefully cataloging specimens and data they'd collected, and the purpose of this research knowledge, Dr. Kapoor said simply understanding. The fundamental nature of reality, discovering principles that could revolutionize everything from energy production to medicine, but not weapons. Kra'Vazh pressed. Dr. Kapoor's expression grew serious. Admiral, if we wanted weapons, we've had access to forces that could tear planets apart for over 2 centuries. We haven't used them because our goal isn't destruction or domination. She gestured. To the chamber below this facility represents humanity's true ambition to push beyond conventional limitations, to understand the universe in all its complexity. The military technologies you encountered during your invasion were developed as protection for this work, not as ends in themselves, and yet you kept all of this hidden kiz observed because the community wasn't ready. Davies replied, your reaction to just the hint of our capabilities proved that Dr. Kapoor nodded. But now that circumstances have forced our hand, we have a choice. Retreat into isolation and secrecy. Or attempt something bolder, sharing our discoveries with species who are willing to approach them with open minds, starting with the Kra'Vazh. Kra'Vazh clicked his compound eyes fixed on the portals below. Why not Blackwood, sedentering the observation chamber your species values? Adaptation and pragmatism. You understand survival imperatives, and you've just had a first-hand lesson in the dangers of following community dogma. Without question, a diplomatic way of saying, we attacked you based on flawed intelligence and outdated prejudices. Kra'Vazh noted dryly precisely. Blackwood smiled, which makes you ideal partners for what comes next, and what does come next, General Kra'Vazh asked, turning all 4 eye-alks toward her, a new paradigm. Blackwood replied, one where knowledge is shared rather than hoarded or suppressed, where exploration takes precedence over control, where different evolutionary paths and perspectives are seen, as assets rather than threats, an ambitious vision. Kra'Vazh acknowledged ambitious. Yes, but necessary, Blackwood said. Firmly, the current system nearly led to our destruction and would have eventually led to conflicts with other species as they developed beyond community constraints, as they inevitably will. She moved to stand beside the Admiral, both of them now. Looking out over the research chamber, we have an opportunity here, Admiral, not just to prevent further conflict between our species, but to chart a new course for interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. Kra'Vazh was silent for a long moment. His color shifting through various hues as he processed what he'd seen and heard. "My government will want assurances," Heffinelly said. "Protocols, oversight mechanisms, of course." Blackwood nodded. "We're not suggesting blind trust. We're suggesting a collaborative framework that respects both our interests." "And if the community objects," Kra'Vazh asked, "they will see any independent alliance as a threat to their authority." Blackwood's expression hardened slightly. "Then they will need to reconsider what that authority is based on. Fear and suppression are poor foundations for lasting stability." 6 months later, Galactic Security Council Headquarters, Centauri Prime. The emergency session of the Galactic Security Council had been in progress for nearly 14 standard hours. With no sign of resolution, the chamber, usually a model of orderly discourse, had evolved into factions barely maintaining diplomatic protocols. The Kra'Vazh Scientific Cooperative represents a direct challenge to council authority, insisted Delegate Huzril, whose once dominant Futurian conclave had lost significant influence since the Earth incident. Their open research protocols undermine the very safety measures that have preserved galactic peace for millennia and yet countered the Tantine representative 7-member species have already applied to join the cooperative. Are we to sanction them? All expel 1/3 of our membership, if necessary. Yes, Zurl chittered. The humans have corrupted the Kra'Vazh with promises of forbidden knowledge. Now they seek to corrupt others. The danger cannot be overstated. The Moran chairperson's gelatinous form pulsed with the equivalent of a weary sigh. "Perhaps we should hear directly from the subjects of our debate before making further judgments." At the chairperson's signal, the chamber's central platform activated, revealing holographic projections of General Blackwood and diplomatic envoy Kra'Vazh. General Envoy, the chairperson, acknowledged, "The council has been discussing your initiative with some concern." "So we've heard," Blackwood replied calmly. "Though discussing seems a generous term for what appears to be happening in your chamber, you stand accused of undermining council authority and violating fundamental safety protocols." The chairperson continued, ignoring the jab. "How do you respond?" Kra'Vazh spoke first, his mandibles clicking deliberately with respect. "Chairperson, the cooperative violates no provision of the galactic charter we have established. Independent research agreements, as is our right as sovereign entities. The council has no authority to prohibit such agreements. The research itself violates community standards." Hezerl interjected, "Community standards are guidelines, not laws." Blackwood pointed out, "And their guidelines established without full understanding of the technologies they restrict. We're offering a chance to revisit those standards based on new data and careful protocols. Data that your species deliberately concealed." Hezerl accused. "Yes," Blackwood acknowledged, "frankly, we concealed our capabilities because we understood how the community would react exactly as you're reacting now, with fear, rather than curiosity, with suppression, rather than engagement." The chairperson's form rippled with irritation. "This debate is unproductive. The council must decide whether the cooperative can be permitted to continue its work or whether sanctions are required before you vote." Blackwood said, her tone shifting to something more formal. "I should inform you that representatives from 14 species, 7 current council members, and 7 independent systems are currently touring the Prometheus complex on Mars. What they're seeing there will likely influence their positions regardless of what this chamber decides." Today, the announcement sent shockwaves through the council. The chairperson's form pulsed rapidly. "The Moran equivalent of alarm. You invited council members to your research facility without authorization. They requested the opportunity and we granted it," Kra'Vazh corrected. "As is their sovereign right. The cooperative operates on principles of transparency and informed consent, concepts this council might benefit from adopting." Before the chairperson could respond, alerts began sounding throughout the chamber. Council members' communication devices activated simultaneously, displaying messages from their respective governments. "What is happening?" the chairperson demanded. "It appears," Blackwood said calmly, "that the tour has concluded, and your representatives are sharing their observations over the next several Minutes, the council chamber descended into barely controlled chaos species that had been staunchly opposed. To the cooperative, were now receiving instructions from their governments to moderate their positions. Others were being recalled entirely to be replaced by representatives more aligned with the new political reality. This is manipulation, Hazel accused. Even as his own communication device chimed with messages from the Furian conclave Davies adaptation, Cosette corrected something every successful species must master. Eventually, the chairperson, sensing the dramatic shift in the political landscape, made a pragmatic decision. This session is adjourned for 24 standard hours. They announced, we will reconvene after consulting with our respective governments. As the projections of Blackwood and CIVILIZED faded, the chairperson remained in the now emptying chamber, their gelatinous form undulating with what might have been concern, or perhaps just maybe a hint of curiosity. 1 year later, Earth Geneva UEDC headquarters, the observation platform that had once hosted a somber conversation between Blackwood and Vulov, was now transformed into a reception area. Representatives from 28 species mingled under the evening sky, Earth's full moon, casting a silver glow over the proceedings. Davies, now promoted to captain, found Blackwood at the railing momentarily. Apart from the festivities, quite a turnout, he commented, joining her. The Xyloians just arrived. That makes 4 former council leadership species. Now officially part of the cooperative and the Farans. Blackwood asked, still holding out officially, but they've sent 3 observer delegations in the past month. It's only a matter of time. Blackwood nodded, her gaze moving across the gathering. Humans and aliens conversed in small groups, their translators occasionally glitching over specialized technical terminology that hadn't existed in the shared lexicon until recently. Did you ever think we'd get here? Davies asked. When you activated protocol. Omega, did you imagine this outcome? Not precisely. Blackwood admitted the survival scenario was most probable. The isolation scenario was prepared for this. She gestured to the diverse gathering. This was the aspirational case. Speaking of aspirations, Davies said, the Civilian Oversight Committee is asking about your plans, now that the transitioning to an advisory role. Davies corrected diplomatically. Tell Thay.